I went to Cal Poly and it was kind of a fluke. I was not accepted under the biology department, and the crop science department called me and said, "Charlie, we'd love you to be a farmer." And I thought that was pretty funny, but I decided I'd go to Cal Poly anyway since that's the school I wanted to go to. And I fell in love with being a farmer at 17 years old. The first week I started studying agriculture, I knew that I'd be a farmer. I'm a firm believer that the best wines come from people that understand grapevine physiology. They grow their own grapes and they make their own wine. And they treat it as a scientific endeavor. So the first thing I do is I go out to a site and I grid off the entire property and I do a detailed soil survey. And I'm looking specifically for differences in chemical and physical characteristics of those soils. I can then block out the vineyard so that each area in the vineyard has very similar soils as far as the chemical makeup of the soil and the water holding capacity. This is very important to me as a winemaker because when I harvest grapes, I want that entire block to have a very uniform ripeness. I don't want to have some grapes that are much less ripe and other grapes that are much more ripe, so that the average is what I'm looking for. No, I'd like everything to be that same number. And we can do that by properly designing the vineyard as far as water holding capacities and chemical makeups of the soils. Here in the hill country, we're able to grow very high quality Syrah, Sangiovese, and Tempranillo. And those are the red grapes that we do grow here on the estate. So we're able to make very nice Italian style and Portuguese style and Spanish style wines. Barrels are one piece of the puzzle that's a little bit less scientific than the rest of the industry. Every species of oak tree, every forest that it was grown in, specifically the climate of that forest, how the wood was aged, who made the barrel, and also how that barrel was toasted. Those are all going to significantly affect the flavors and aromas in that barrel that are then going to be imparted into the wine. I use 3 different types of barrels. I use new barrels. New barrels impart quite a bit of flavor and quite a bit of aroma into wines. I use once used barrels, and these barrels impart about half as much flavor and half as much aroma into the wines. And then the third type of barrel that we speak about as winemakers are neutral barrels. They function as a storage vessel, but they're no longer imparting flavors and aromas into wines. I make a decision about which barrels I'm going to use and what blend of new barrels and once used barrels and neutral barrels that I'm going to use, but I also have to decide how much oak can that particular wine handle. So my Sangiovese gets about 25% new oak, both French, Eastern European, and a little bit of American oak. And it sees 10 to 12 months in barrels. Throughout that wine's life, we'll pull that entire lot of wine, so all of the 2008 Sangiovese, we'll pull it out of the barrels and put it into a tank and blend it all up, and that way the flavors are congruent throughout the entire lot of wine. One thing that I think is really neat about our winery is you can come here and I'm personally responsible for growing the grapes, making the wine, and I also grow almost all the produce that goes into our food in our bistro. So you can come to Flat Creek Estate and experience an estate meal and an estate wine in one stop.
Man, we had a great time talking to Charlie Kidd, the man behind the wine at Flat Creek Estate. You know, it doesn't surprise me that his publicist is a contributing writer for Rolling Stone magazine, because Charlie is absolutely a rock star of winemaking. Next up, we're going to meet another rock star, the executive chef of Flat Creek Estate, Sean Fulford. Oh.